Namaskar, everyone. I hope you all are doing well and ready to embark on a fascinating journey towards the foundation of ancient Indian geospatial knowledge, mapping the sacred texts and traditions. Let's explore together. So, this will be the objectives of this lecture. By the end of this lecture, you will be able to explore the foundations of ancient Indian geospatial knowledge, focusing on its connection with sacred traditions and texts. You can examine the role of sacred geography in ancient Indian texts, including the Vedas, Puranas, and other spiritual scriptures. You can understand the influence of sacred geometry, astrology, and astronomy on ancient Indian urban planning, architecture, and cartography. You can also highlight the relevance of ancient Indian geospatial principles in contemporary urban and environmental planning practices. Welcome to today's lecture, where we will embark on an exploration of ancient Indian geospatial knowledge. In this session, we will delve into how the ancient Indian worldview seamlessly intertwined geography with sacred traditions, philosophy, and cultural practices. Ancient Indian geospatial knowledge was not just about understanding landforms and maps, it was deeply rooted in the concept of balance, harmony, and cosmic order. Our purpose today is to uncover the roots of Indian spatial knowledge, like how geography was not only seen as physical entity, but also as a spiritual and ethical landscape that guided human existence. Through sacred sites, temples, pilgrimage routes, and even the orientation of cities, geography became a means of understanding the universe and one's place within it. Let's begin by exploring how geography was more than just a practical tool for ancient Indians. It was a reflection of their spiritual, cultural, and moral values. Let's begin by looking at how geospatial knowledge is portrayed in ancient Indian texts. In ancient Indian tradition, geography was not merely about physical land and topography, it was a profound reflection of spirituality and philosophy. In texts like Vedas, Puranas, and other ancient scriptures, geography was seen as a cosmic map where every landform, every direction, and every location had deeper spiritual and philosophical significance. The Vedas, for instance, reflect a vision of the world as a sacred space with natural elements like mountains, rivers, and forests being considered sacred and divine. And these texts did not just guide physical journey, but also spiritual one, mapping not only the places, but the places and journeys of the soul. And in the Puranas, sacred landscapes were described with great detail, connecting geography with the cycles of time, seasons, and cosmic principles. So now we can say that sacred geography was not just the land we walk on, it was an essential part of the cosmic order, interwoven with human ethics, spirituality, and life purpose. Now let's explore the role of sacred geography in three major Indian religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. In each of these traditions, the understanding of geography goes beyond mere land and territory. It is seen as an essential part of the cosmic order. And these religions have developed a unique relationship with geography that integrates spiritual beliefs with physical locations. Like in Hinduism, the concept of Brahman represents the cosmos as a vast, interconnected system, and geographical locations such as rivers, mountains, and forests are considered sacred. For instance, the Ganga River is not just a body of water, but a deity, and its geography is tied to spiritual purification. And in Buddhism, sacred sites like Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha attained enlightenment, are geographically significant. And if we talk about the pilgrimage routes in Buddhism, these are often mapped to represent the journey towards nirvana, symbolizing the union of the material world into spiritual liberation. And in Jainism, sacred geography is linked to the lives of Tirthankars, and pilgrimage sites such as Palitana are considered spiritually powerful, where geography aligns with metaphysical and moral teachings. And in these traditions, geographical locations are not simply places on a map, they are revered as spaces of deep spiritual significance, where the physical and the metaphysical converge. And these sacred spaces provide a spatial framework for understanding the cosmos and the human journey through it. Pilgrimage sites in these religions often follow a spatial logic that mirrors cosmic principles. And these locations are not just random, they are mapped to align with the universe, spiritual and moral order. It also guides individuals towards enlightenment, liberation, or moksha. In the Vedic view of the cosmos, geography and universe were intricately linked. The Vedas conceptualized the world as cosmic structure where spatial organization reflected deeper spiritual truths. And the Vedic understanding of directions and cardinal points was not merely a practical tool for navigation, they had profound spiritual significance. For instance, East was associated with the rising sun and symbolized new beginnings, light, and knowledge. And West represented the setting sun, symbolizing the end of cycles, death, and transformation. The North was sacred as it represented eternity and spiritual wisdom. And the South symbolized the material world and fertility. These cardinal directions were not just used for physical navigation, they were the guiding principles of cosmic alignment, ensuring that every structures from temples to cities was built in harmony with the universe energy. Sacred rivers like the Ganga were considered spiritual lifelines, purifying both the land and the soul. Mountains like the Himalayas were regarded as the abodes of gods, where the physical world met the divine realm. And these natural features were seen as more than mere landforms, but they were divine entities and were fundamental to Vedic geographical and spiritual consciousness. So, the Vedic view of cosmos was not just an abstract concept, but a guide for aligning human settlements with the natural and spiritual worlds. And geography, in this sense, was a manifestation of the divine order. Let's now turn our attention to Vastu Shastra, the ancient Indian science of architecture and spatial arrangement, and its deep relationship with geospatial knowledge. At the core of Vastu Shastra is the Vastu Purush Mandal, a sacred diagram that outlines the spatial organization of a structure. And this mandal represents the cosmic being and serves as a guide for aligning a building or space with the force of nature and the universe. So it's not just a layout, it's a symbolic map that harmonizes human space with the cosmic order. The Vastu Purush Mandal divides this space into 9 grids and each representing different deities and forces that influence the structure. And by following this principle, one ensures that the space is in alignment with the natural energies around it, which create a balanced and harmonious environment. In temple architecture, these principles were used to design sacred spaces that were not only aesthetically pleasing but also spiritually potent. The temples were designed with precise attention to the cardinal directions and the alignment of natural elements. Like the Garbhagriha or Sanctum Sanctorum, for example, was always placed in a way that allowed the worshipper to align with cosmic forces. And the same principle extended to urban planning as also. Ancient cities like Patliputra and Mohenjo-daro were designed with an understanding of spatial harmony, following Vastu Shastra to align urban spaces with the surrounding natural environment. So, the Vastu Shastra represents a holistic understanding of geospatial knowledge where geography, architecture, and spiritual principles converge to create living spaces that resonate with the forces of nature. So, in the ancient Puranas, we find a unique mapping of Earth's regions that blend mythological and physical landscapes, offering us an extraordinary vision of the world. And these texts don't just describe the geography of the earth, they provide a map of sacred and divine spaces that connect the physical with the spiritual. For example, in the Mahabharata and Ramayana, the landscapes described are not only real but also deeply symbolic. Mountains, rivers, and forests in these epic texts often embody divine forces, guiding the characters on their journeys, not just through space but also through spiritual growth. In the Mahabharata, Hastinapur, the kingdom of Kauravas and Pandavas, is depicted with great geographical detail, showing like how the land itself plays a role in the moral and strategic decisions of this story. Similarly, the Ramayana maps the journey of Lord Rama, where forests and rivers are not just backdrops but integral to the narrative, representing stages of transformation and enlightenment. The Puranas also describe the divine geography of the earth, where Jambudvipa, the central continent, hold a specific place as the sacred heart of the world. And this region is surrounded by other sacred lands, each with its own spiritual significance. And these sacred lands were believed to be portals between the human and divine realms, linking earth with the heavens. And this sacred geography of the Puranas is more than just a map, it's a map of divine order that shapes both the physical and metaphysical worlds, connecting humanity with the cosmos. Now let's delve into the early forms of cartography in India, a fascinating intersection of geography, astronomy, and mathematics. Like in ancient India, maps were not just tools for navigation, but they were representations of the cosmic order and territorial boundaries. One of the earliest cartographic representations can be seen in the concept of Janpads, the territorial kingdom of ancient India. And these regions, as described in the text, were not just political entities but were aligned with cosmic principles. And the boundaries of the Janpads were not just physical divisions, they were often mapped to astronomical patterns, like reflecting the deep connection between the earth and the cosmos. And the works of ancient Indian astronomers and mathematicians also played a significant role in early cartography. For example, Aryabhat and Varahmihir, like two of the India's greatest scholars, incorporated geospatial references in their astronomical texts, using latitudes and longitudes to describe the positions of stars, planets, and other celestial bodies. And their work laid the foundation for mapping the earth through celestial observation. Additionally, ancient texts like the Surya Siddhanta not only outlined astronomical principles but also provided early descriptions of geospatial coordinates, effectively blending astronomy with geography. And these works helped in understanding the movement of celestial bodies relative to Earth, allowing for the mapping of seasons, time cycles, and spatial relationships. So, early Indian cartography was not just a scientific pursuit, it was a deeply philosophical and spiritual practice which was tied to the laws of the cosmos and the order of the universe. Now, let's explore the fascinating relationship between astrology and spatial organization in ancient India. In ancient Indian thought, astrology was not just a tool for predicting the future, it was intricately tied to how people understood and interacted with their physical spaces. The movement of celestial bodies were not just observed for their mystical qualities but also for their practical influence of the earthly realm. The celestial bodies, such as the sun, moon, and planets, played a significant role in the mapping of earthly spaces. For example, in the design of temples and cities, the alignment with solar movements was of paramount importance. The structures were often oriented in such a way that they harmonized with cosmic rhythms, ensuring that the temple or city was in sync with celestial forces. And this was not just a symbolic act, but a practical consideration, ensuring spiritual balance and energetic harmony. Like Vastu Shastra, which governs the principles of architecture and design, reflects this deeply, which requires buildings, including homes and temples, to be aligned with astronomical principles, including the positioning of doors, windows, and sanctums in relation to cardinal direction and cosmic influences. And the celestial sphere was thought to directly impact the earthly space, ensuring that architecture and geography were not just functional but in harmony with the universe energy flow. Astrology also informed the urban planning of ancient cities. For instance, many cities and towns were designed with specific astrological consideration such as the positioning of roads and markets based on the celestial charts that aligned with favorable planetary configurations. This ensured that cosmic energy flowed through these spaces, contributing to their prosperity and spiritual significance. So now we can say that astronomy and astrology in ancient India were not seen as separate from geography and architecture, but they were intertwined, reflecting a worldview where the celestial and earthly realms were deeply connected. Let's now delve into the profound influence of sacred geometry on the design of temples and urban planning in ancient India. In ancient Indian architecture, geometry was not just mathematical tool, but it was a spiritual language. It was believed that the alignment of structures with cosmic principles could bring harmony between the earthly and the celestial realms. And the design of the temples in particular was governed by sacred geometric patterns that symbolized the order of the universe, ensuring that these spaces acted as portals between the material worlds and the divine. Now, one of the most striking examples of this is Konark Sun Temple in Odisha. This temple is built with an intricately designed chariot wheel motif that symbolically mirrors the cosmic wheel, like the wheel of time, which we had already discussed in the previous lecture. And the orientation and positioning of the temple's structures align with solar movements, ensuring that sunlight illuminates specific areas during certain times of the year, particularly during the winter solstice. Similarly, the Brihadeshwara temple in Tamil Nadu also showcases the principle of sacred geometry. Its towering Viman or temple spire was designed not just for architectural magnificence but to symbolize the cosmos itself. And the use of proportions, rations, and alignments in its design echoes the idea that the physical space must reflect the cosmic order. Like sacred geometry is also a critical aspect in urban planning. Cities like Jaipur were designed based on Vastu Shastra. Its careful grid design is an excellent example of how geometry was used to align urban spaces with both natural force and spiritual harmony. Let's now explore the fascinating world of pilgrimage routes and sacred sites across India and their profound connection to geospatial knowledge. In Indian tradition, pilgrimages are not merely physical journeys but also spiritual quests. And these routes are more than just roads, they are mapped out to align with cosmic principles and guide pilgrims to divine realms. Across India, pilgrimage circuits like the Char Dham, comprising Yamunotri, Gangotri, Kedarnath, and Badrinath, are a prime example of how sacred geography and geospatial knowledge intertwine. And these routes were mapped with specific astrological and spiritual significance in mind. So, the geography of these sacred sites was seen as the divine map guiding devotees to spiritual enlightenment. Now, let's delve into the fascinating early surveying tools and techniques used in ancient India to map and measure the land. One of the remarkable features of the ancient Indian geospatial knowledge is the way it intertwined with everyday life, especially when it came to agriculture and urban planning. Early Indian surveying techniques were not only used for land measurement but also for aligning the physical and spiritual world. Ancient Indian texts, both Prakrit and Sanskrit, contain detailed references to the ways in which the land was measured and surveyed. For example, texts like the Rig Veda, Silp Shastra, and Earth Shastra provide information about the principles behind land measurement as well as tools and techniques that were used for surveying land. And these were often linked with rituals and astronomical observation, highlighting the importance of sacred geography. And in terms of tools, early Indian surveyors used a variety of instruments, including simple ropes, measuring rods, and compasses, all calibrated based on the cosmic principles. And this was not just about measuring for the sake of measurement, but also ensuring that the land was in harmony with the spiritual and cosmic order. For example, land measurements in ancient India were often conducted based on the units of the bigha, which had regional variations. But these measurements were not just about size. This reflected the balance between the physical world and divine. The measurements were used in agricultural fields for crop rotation, irrigation systems, and the design of water channels to maintain a balance between the earth's element, water for crops, air for circulation, and fire for temperature regulation. Additionally, surveying had a significant impact on urban planning also. Ancient cities like Patliputra and Ayodhya were strategically planned using these tools. The layout of streets, the placement of temples, and the design of water bodies were all aligned using surveying principles that were geospatially informed. And these urban centers were designed to maintain harmony between people, nature, and the divine cosmos. The influence of these ancient surveying practices can still be seen today in the meticulousness of Indian architecture and urban planning, where geometry, astronomy, and spatial organization were all considered essential in shaping sustainable and um, spiritually significant spaces. So, the legacy of ancient surveying continues to influence modern practices in land management, agriculture, and urban development, integrating both practical and philosophical dimensions of geospatial knowledge. Now, let's explore how local topography was intricately linked to spiritual traditions in the ancient India. In Indian thought, land is not just physical space, but it is deeply connected to spiritual practices also. Ancient texts, traditions, and cultural places has immense importance on natural landscapes, seeing them not merely as a resource but as sacred entities. Take, for example, the sacred mountains in the Indian traditions, like Mount Meru, the mythical axis of the universe, is considered the center of all spiritual and physical realms. Ancient India was a pioneer in integrating geospatial awareness into the management of natural resources, particularly water and land. Let's begin by looking at ancient water management system. In India, water was always seen as a sacred resource. As a result, many ancient Indian cultures developed highly advanced systems for storing, distributing, and conserving water. And this geospatial approach to water management was crucial in sustaining agricultural activities and providing for communities. One of the most impressive examples of this is stepwells or bowlis, which we had already discussed in the previous lectures in details. Now, one of the most fascinating aspects of ancient Indian geospatial knowledge is how it spread across the world through trade and cultural exchange. India's rich philosophical and spatial practice had a profound influence, particularly in South Asia, where the mapping of the sacred became a central theme in the design of cities, temples, and landscape. And India's influence on Southeast Asia, especially in places like Cambodia, Thailand, and Indonesia, can be seen in the architectural and urban layouts of the temples and sacred spaces. Say, for example, Cambodia's Angkor Wat is an exemplary case of this exchange, and its layout, which follows a cosmic map. About this we had already discussed in the previous lectures. So as we explore the modern applications of ancient geospatial knowledge, it is clear that there is a renewed interest in drawing inspirations from traditional wisdom, especially in the field of sustainable planning and architecture. Now, as we conclude, let's quickly revisit the key points of today's lecture. First, we had talked about the enduring significance of ancient Indian geospatial knowledge. Then we talked about the sacred geography's influence. Then we explored the connection to modern practices. So finally, we can say that ancient Indian geospatial knowledge provides not just a way to map the world, but also a way to understand and relate to it, ensuring that spiritual harmony and environmental sustainability coexist. Thank you.